how's it going? I'm here in the Fender studio, and we're talking about the new Vintera II road-worn models. And I have a very special guest with us today, Corey Hansen. Corey, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to meet you and hear your great playing. So let's talk about what Vintera II means a little bit. Our Vintera models are kind of reissues of Fender models from the past, and we focus on different decades of Fender's history. And what that really means is all these guitars have really accurate vintage specs, from era-correct neck shapes to the finishes to the hardware like the bridges and the tuners. So one thing I wanted to touch on was the road-worn finish. So these Vintera II road-worns are obviously lightly aged, and it's a little bit different than what we have traditionally done with road-worns. And I think to some extent that kind of enhances the tonality of the guitars. So first of all, both the necks and bodies on all these instruments in the road-worn series are lacquer through and through. But on the back of the necks, we obviously age them a little bit, and that means we knock off some of the gloss. And I was wondering if that made a big difference to you. Are you a player that appreciates the glossiness kind of sanded off?
Totally.
Yeah, and how does that help you when you're playing?
I mean, if I get a new guitar and it has a glossy neck, I just take it
You
down.
do it anyway.
I do it myself.
Yeah. Okay.
So picking up, but it's sort of more than that, than having a satiny feel. It's like, it feels worn. Like I feel like I'm holding a vintage guitar, without the exorbitant price tag that comes with that. Yeah, it feels like somebody's been playing it for a long time, it's like when a guitar feels like that, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, I want to pick that up. I want to play it because it feels very natural, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I agree with you. So necks are lacquer, but very kind of satinized on the back there, which is a great feature. All lacquer. One thing that's different about how we used to do road-worn on these instruments is they're semi-gloss. Our old road-worns, a lot of them are kind of satin, and they have a lot of finish worn down to the wood to kind of simulate if you're sweating a lot and rubbing the finish off with your arms while you're playing. These are semi-gloss. They don't have any finish worn down to the body, and there's light checking that you can see, the little eggshell cracking that lacquer gets. And that's really unique to these road-worn instruments. One of the other great things about these instruments being lightly aged, they are hand aged, so each one is different. No two are alike. You're going to have your own unique checking pattern. The light dings, it's going to be different, so it's really going to be yours. And like you said, Corey, the more you play it, it's going to continue to wear out. I mean, you know as well as I do that the thin lacquer, it's prone to like age. If you sweat a lot or if you ding it, it's going to kind of patina over time. Do you enjoy the fact that the more you play, it gets really beat up and become like you put your own stamp on the guitar? Personally, that's one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm always, my guitars, my Strats, it's always right here. It just is this big empty, bare piece of wood, because I'm just totally picking, right here and right here over, by the bridge. Yeah, it's cool to have something that is, if you're interested in aging your guitar, that you can just do it yourself by playing it instead of relicking it or getting someone else to do it for you.
Yeah, so we start the process, but they're definitely going to get more beaten up as you play them, especially because of that thin lacquer. I see a lot of players like you that when they pick, they dig a chunk out right there under the waist here, which is really cool. nitrocellulose lacquer. I actually prefer a guitar that's finished with lacquer. I think there is a bit of a tonal benefit there where the wood kind of breathes and you hear the real tonality of the guitar a little bit nicer with lacquer.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. Thin lacquer always lets the grain breathe and, lets the tone come out more easily. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like the tone is just projecting, doesn't have anything to resist against.
Yeah. It definitely allows the vibrations through the wood to really shine through. Kind of going along those lines with the lacquer, earlier you mentioned that a guitar is great if you can play it acoustically and it rings, and I think the lacquer definitely shines through in that situation. If you don't play plugged in, I think you can really hear the tone and the vibrations. Do you often check out a guitar before you buy one, not plugged in, and notice that extra vibrancy with lacquer instruments?
So when I go to a store, I'll pick up a guitar, and usually within 30 seconds, I'll be able to say, like, okay, this guitar has songs just pouring out of it.
Right.
And then if it does, then it's like, I want to take it home, because I want to write songs on it.
Yeah, so the nitrocellulose really enhances that kind of vibe. When you're playing, the vibrations come through. I totally agree. The other great thing about lacquer is on all these vintage style instruments, when we paint them with these beautiful vintage colors, they just look right when they're in lacquer. Mm-hmm. Do you have a preference for vintage colors? Do you have a favorite?
I mean, I love a good burst. Mm-hmm. I like the mid '60s burst with the little streak of cherry in there.
Right.
And I love a butterscotch or blonde,
Yep.
at age like that.
Yep.
That's kind of my favorite.
Yeah.
Really.
This is a vintage blonde. So like I said, each one of these guitars has two different colors, all lacquer, of course. But the heart of them is the pickups, and I wanted to make a note about those really quick. Our pickups on the Vintera series, as they are on this limited road-worn series, are made very accurately as far as the construction. So they have fiber bobbins and Alnico magnets. They're very touch-sensitive and dynamic. Corey, I noticed in your playing, you do a lot of controlling your volume knob. The single-coil Alnico 5 Fender Thing does that really, really well. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit, if you take advantage of that during your performance.
Oh yeah, gladly. Yeah. I mean, the bridge pickup, first of all, is pretty awesome. Like it's already. I mean, I usually will roll the bridge down. It's super nice to have the tone connected to the bridge, which is not usually the case, at least with vintage Strats. So that just lets you roll off some of the bite. Get like a nice growly, mid-rangey sound.
Yeah.
Without some of that extra treble. And then you can kind of roll this out. Yeah, a lot of control for a single coil guitar.
So yeah, that's one great feature about all these Vintera II road-worn models is the pickups. They're really transparent. They react to your pick attack. If you dig in or you play lightly, you can kind of clean up that way. So the other thing we definitely wanted to talk about was all the different models we have in this limited series. Corey and I are holding two of them right here. I've got the Vintera II road-worn 60s Telecaster, and Corey's holding the road-worn 60s Stratocaster. There is also a limited road-worn 50s Jazzmaster and also a 60s Precision bass in the series. So there's 4 different models and they each have 2 different colors. One thing I wanted to mention real quick is that on the 60s Strat and Tele, you get your option of rosewood or maple, which is really unique because in '58, when Fender first came out with rosewood boards, shortly after that, everything was rosewood only, but you could still order a maple board as an option. But if you did that, it was a maple cap. It wasn't actually a one-piece maple neck. So you'll notice that that on these 50s and 60s Tellys in the Road-Worn series, there's no skunk stripe on the back, and it actually has a maple cap, which is kind of a neat vintage feature there. So there are 4 models in the series. Now, you just told me that when you tour, you use Stratocasters a lot. Are you more a Stratocaster guy or a Telecaster guy? And what about either would be the thing that you determined what you'd like better?
I mean, it really depends on the band. In my band Wand, Strat. All through and through. It's so much fun playing, because we covered a pretty wide sonic spectrum of music, and there's a lot of improvisation, so Strat is kind of perfect for that. With my solo band, it's all Telly.
Okay.
Usually bridge pickup, just rocking like 3-piece style.
Right.
Which is great, in that context.
You find yourself staying on the bridge pickup on the Telly most of the time?
You know what? Like, I actually think that the neck pickup on a Telly is such a great and unique sound. If the pickups are, really able to capture the acoustic quality of the guitar. And yeah, so I do spend actually rhythm, like doing rhythms and then lead on the bridge, usually.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah, having both of them in the studio when I'm working, it's like, okay, grab, if I'm gonna do straight up rock stuff, grab the Telly. I just know exactly what's gonna happen. Get on the bridge, and it's just like, you get that Telly magic straight into an amp. And then if I'm like, oh, I need to explore, or if I'm searching for a sound, Strat, pick up the Strat, mess around, 5 positions, tone knobs, tremolo, and it's great for that.
Yeah. The other great thing about these instruments is the necks. Besides the fact that the lacquer is kind of knocked back so it's nice and smooth, they're era-correct neck shapes. So you get a nice variety of different shapes. The vintage stuff that we're doing, these necks are a little bit thicker. I think they range anywhere from like about 7/90 thousandths thickness at the 1st fret, all the way up to almost 1 inch, I think, on this Telly at the 12th fret. So the other thing we haven't talked about yet, Corey, was the fact that these all have vintage correct hardware on them. So it's vintage style tuners, vintage style bridges. On the Telly, that means this nice 3-saddle bridge. This, being a 60s Telly, has steel saddles. Your Strat has a synchronized tremolo, vintage style, with the bent steel.
I mean, I mostly play vintage instruments. All my hardware is either vintage style, like replicas, or the actual real deal.
Yeah. So these are actually lightly aged, so they're not shiny like they're brand new. They've got some really tasteful aging on there to match the aging we do on the necks and bodies.
I'm glad there's not a ton of aging on them, because sometimes they'll like make it all rusty and stuff, which, maybe if, you were living in Key West or something, it would get like that, but usually they stay pretty clean.
Yeah.
I do like the top hat switch cover.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, that's a 60s thing. I love that too. Very distinctive and easy to grab too. Knock around. Mm-hmm. I notice you like to use your trem a lot.
With the Telly, I don't mess around with the bridge.
Yeah.
It's a part of the sound, and it's a whole alchemy that's happening there. With the Strat, yeah, very much trem. You got to have the trem. I would never do a hardtail, but that's just me. It's a part of the fun, is having a good trem. And the cool thing about this trem is that it stays in tune pretty well. It's very stable. I mean, I was really wailing on it, as you heard, and didn't really have to tune very much.
Yeah, a little good setup and you're good to go. So after you've been playing these new Road-Worns with the aging and the vintage correct pickup and great era correct neck shapes, what's your favorite aspect about these Vintera II Road-Worn models?
I mean, my favorite thing about the guitars is that they're really good guitars. They seem like you could put them through the paces and take them on tour and do what people have been doing with those original Fender guitars from the 50s and 60s. That's the reason why you're still making them. And these are pretty great examples of those, and they're very consistent. Yeah, you could just take this out on the road and it could be your main guitar forever.
All right, folks, well, that was the Vintera II Road-Worn models out for a limited time, so get them while they're hot. I want to thank Corey Hansen so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to meet you and hear your playing, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
If you need any more information, you can go to Fender.com and check out the new Vintera II Road-Worns there. I'm going to let Corey play us out a little here. Thanks, folks.